Cue trumpets, the crown. Yeah, it sounds like I'm taking the pee, but some thoughts I had following on from the last video I did about the virus got me to thinking what the words mean, corona, crown. And I started to think, wait a minute, we live in a very narcissistic world. Everybody is me focused and me centered. And it made me ask the question, are we suffering from our own narcissism? Have our crowns slipped around our throats, and are we suffering the consequences of a narcissistic approach to life? I think we can only expect that there are some things that will kind of backfire on us when we're living a civilized life, and when it's really intensely narcissistic, and it is intensely narcissistic at the moment. It's one thing to say that we want to help ourselves, and we all freak out at the fact that, you know, we could all get sick and die, and, well, I know we're not all freaking out about that, but, you know, that's the general assumption. When we say that the earth is dying, we tend to sort of yawn and say, yeah, we know that's happening. Unless you're a hard and fast activist that helps the earth and goes out there and causes a fuss and does protests, then yes, we know that the earth is affected. But when we say the earth is sick and dying, in the sense that we are responsible for making that happen, i.e. humans, it seems to be a slightly different matter, at least to the mainstream authorities that are in charge of what we do and how we do it. And yeah, these are thoughts that I had that follow on from what I did before, and about the idea of the narcissistic crown coming down upon us, and call it karma, call it whatever you like, but it's coming down, it's coming back on us. And these are the thoughts I had, that it's relevant, I suppose. It's inevitable that we are going to suffer as humans, as individuals, because we have turned our backs on the natural world. Turning our backs on the natural world is something that we do probably every day, just because of the way we live, just because we are part of the civilized life. And you may say, well, I'm not responsible individually, and of course you're not. This is something that has happened over hundreds or thousands, in fact, of years. Thousands, in fact, of years. That's not really good English. Thousands of years, in fact. Anyway, you wouldn't think I was a writer, would you? Well, I speak very differently to the way I write. Anyway, yeah, so that is a point of fact, that we are suffering now the consequences. And also I was thinking that I think we're in the year of the rat, aren't we? And when you think of all the plagues that happened before, they blamed the rat for it. Not that the rat's responsible now, but there's a sort of a connection, there's a sort of bit of symbolism there that's going on, that we're all behaving like we have plague, and short of putting red crosses on the door or whatever when we're having to self-isolate, or where we've got it in the household. yeah, we're doing everything that is almost the same, but civilization is taking its toll now. But there's another thing I wanted to mention about the idea of isolation. When they say self-isolate, it really doesn't make much difference to me, because I'm quite isolated anyway. Living in the back end of Wales, as I do, feel isolated, but also in my community I'm quite isolated. And I have been for a number of years, and probably this is the most social I often get, is by making a video and knowing that a handful of people are probably watching it. If you share these videos, then more people will watch them and more people can talk about the things that I present, because most of you will email me and say, wow, great video, yeah, great. But make comments where the video is, and yeah, talk to me and talk to each other. That would be good. But anyway, I digress. The isolation is one thing, but there is something else that the other night, just as I was dropping off to sleep, I was thinking about the fact that I often get quite depressed, and I know a few of you probably do as well. It's something that happens today, you know, especially those of us who feel quite a connection to Earth and to the natural ways and everything, and tribal culture, blah, blah, blah. But when I was thinking that the world at the moment is in chaos, and the world globally, that there's a lot of chaos going on, and it's almost like the world's getting depressed, and it was like a feeling of offloading what I usually feel as my own depression and my own sense of isolation and my own discomfort in this world. I don't get on very well in this world because it doesn't sort of vibrate on the same level, if you like, because I'm very much a person for communicating in a natural way and talking about things that matter, having lots of nice conversations, and that just doesn't happen. With the technological age, it doesn't happen. It just falls by the wayside and people don't want to sit and talk anymore. So that's generally how I feel. But this feeling of offloading my depression, if you like, onto the world, and the world is in chaos and the world is in upheaval and the world has got the problem, it made me feel slightly better. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm not alone with this isolation, I'm not alone with this depression anymore. And then I went to a post by a psychologist I really love watching. He's helped me tremendously over many, many years. And underneath his video that he'd done about the virus, there were lots of people saying, hey, I don't feel quite so depressed anymore. And this conversation took place about people who didn't feel so depressed because of what was going on, the chaos in the world. And I thought, that's very interesting. So I'm not alone with that. There are other people who obviously feel the same. Interesting. You know, I find that feeling interesting. I didn't expect to actually feel like this. Not that I don't feel for other people, not that I don't feel for what's going on, I do. But with the inevitable consequences that are happening as a result of me, culture, destructive, we live in a very destructive society, destructive culture, where the earth is concerned and where natural ways of behaving and communicating and creating our lives is concerned. I do feel for people, but there's something else that is taking place under the surface, and it means that we can talk more positively, I think, about this and talk more openly about this. I hope so. We're going to have to rely on technology a lot more, and that's another thing that's a little bit scary, I think. A few years ago, when I first arrived in Wales, which is nearly 10 years ago now, really, 9 years ago, something like that, I wrote a novel, and I was really absorbed with this novel, and it talked about something called a great crisis, which was a great economical collapse in society, and that led to the creation of a kind of technology where we all had to live in a computer program because it was the only way we could live, and there were rebels opposed to this. And when I wrote this novel, I've still got it in the bottom drawer, and it really needs to come out now, because when I look at it now I think, bloody hell, you know, I wrote about something and it's kind of happening. So to turn to technology, which we're all having to do with working at home, with communicating, we can't catch anything of each other if we're online. Because that's happening, it's almost, yeah, happening. And I did talk about this a bit, but anyway, that's something that we need now. We need technology now to be able to communicate. But don't let's go overboard with it, you know. Let's talk. Let's talk, let's comment, let's talk. I want to hear from people, you know. I'm all alone, as probably you are. But yeah, there's things we can do. I love my own company, don't get me wrong, I do love my own company, but I do miss talking with people as we used to talk about life and about all sorts of issues, and having a laugh. And as I was talking about before in a video I made with Louisa, you know, we always used to get together and have a laugh and dance and sing and do all sorts of things, and I'm that sort of person, I love it. But anyway, there's a few things I've mentioned here that I think are good to think about, especially with the crown. The crowns that people wear today, and in the new age, it's rife. There are so many people wearing crowns, so many people who are the great healers. I am the great healer and I'm going out there to heal you now. And you can't heal me because I can heal you better than you can heal me. Oh, honestly, I've seen it all over the years. I've seen it all and it drives you nuts, but you've got to laugh. Anyway, I'll leave you with that thought of the crown theory, that we're all suffering from that anyway, on a psychological level, and it's just coming out physically. That's the way I see it. So now we've got something that's running out of control because we just kept thinking of ourselves all the time and kept thinking how glorious we were as human beings. The human race is so glorious, it's so grandiose that we really need to get on top of that. Think of the spring buds at the moment. Just turn to nature. Just turn and look at nature. The spring bud. Nature just carries on. She just does what she has to do, what she's been doing for thousands and thousands of years. Aren't we silly humans? Aren't we daft? Oh well. It's nice to talk to you, and yeah, I'll have some other subjects again soon, and thanks for listening, as always.